Do you know what your team wants? Do you know what your team desires? Do you know what your team values? Do you know what the collective sentiment is within your team? One of the major roles of a team leader or of a middle manager is to ensure that your team is motivated. Motivated to do their work, motivated to work even if the environment is difficult, motivated to do reworks, motivated to do uncomfortable work, that they are motivated to continue to perform effectively and efficiently in spite of what is going on. The only way that you can do this as a team leader or as a middle manager is by having conversations with your team, having conversations with your team members and understanding them, because you really need to understand your people. You need to understand what is going on with them. You need to understand what they are feeling as individuals, and even more importantly, what they are feeling as the team. Now, there are two aspects that I'm going to talk about in this video, which is about ensuring that you understand what it is the team desires and ensuring that the team is working in an environment that is conducive for them to operate effectively and efficiently. There are other things that you could look at, but I just want to highlight these two aspects and to show you how it was that we supported the team so that they could continue to be motivated to work. Aspect one was understanding what the team desires. I was assigned to a project as a new role, which was providing support in a certain project, and I was working with a team that was totally new to me. Now, a couple of weeks into the project, I realized that the team was not using a certain tool. The project had kind of stalled. The team was not applying a certain tool that they needed to use. Now, when I found that out, I just went on an investigation to have conversations with the team, individual team members, and to have conversations with various groups within the team just to understand what is going on. Because this tool has been given to you to support your work, but you're not using it. Now, what I found after a couple of weeks, because I had to kind of get them to know me, get them to trust me and to open up, was that the team was feeling disrespected, the team was feeling disregarded, the team had been feeling overlooked by their supervisors. Now, we did not go off and just reprimand the team and give them ultimatums. Instead, what we did was sat down with their supervisors, and come up with a couple of interventions that would make the team feel respected and make the team feel valued, because that's what they were looking for, and the things that they had actually raised were true and they were right. So we implemented these interventions over a period of about 2 years. It took that much time to win the team over and just to get them to a point where they felt like, yes, the organization values us, and yes, the organization respects us. And after those 2 years, the team was able to take up the project, to own the tool and to begin to apply it. Before, they had been doing their work, but they had kind of just quietly decided we're not going to use this. But now, after feeling like this is our thing, after feeling the respect and feeling that they had been seen and they had been understood, they took up the project, they took up the tool, and they began to use it. And that was success for both the team and both the supervisors. That was scenario one, of just understanding what is it that the team desires. Because when something is not working, before you reprimand, before you give ultimatums, first understand what is going on. Because the problem might not be what you're seeing. The problem might be a little bit deeper than what it is that you're actually seeing. Now, scenario two. Again, I was assigned to a new role. And in this role, I was part of a process that runs annually, at times, several times in a year. And what happens at the end of that process is a meeting to kind of close the process and we'll give a report of the findings. And what I found is that in that meeting was actually very combative. It was a very unpleasant and uncomfortable meeting with accusations and counter-accusations and finger-pointing and all that kind of stuff. The process is a process that runs frequently. And I was wondering, what is it that's causing us to end this process with a meeting that is so unpleasant? So again, I decided I was going to have a couple of conversations with the people who were involved in the process. So I sat down with a couple of the people who were involved in the process just to ask them, what is it that's happening? What went wrong? What did we miss? What is it that you are feeling throughout this process? Again, it took a couple of weeks for me to do that and actually understand it. There were mainly one-on-one conversations because the process was that sensitive, and I needed the people to be able to feel safe enough to open up and tell me what it was they were feeling. And what I found in the end is the people who were involved and participated in this process, the people who gave information in this process, were operating in an environment of fear. It was almost like when they were approached by the people who run the process, who are what I could say are external consultants who run the process, when they were approached, they felt like it was an exam. So when they approached them and asked them a question, they felt like saying that I am not the one who is in charge of that particular aspect of the organization was wrong. So they gave an answer based on the knowledge that they had. And at times the answer wasn't right, at times the answer wasn't sufficient. So when I spoke to the people, the consultants who actually ran the process, I also realized that they were just walking into the organization and approaching the first person who they see and just asking questions. There was no direction, there was no cover, there was no guidance. So in the end, when we had the meeting to give the report on the process, the meeting was unpleasant. The meeting was combative because what was being reported was not the truth. What was being reported was not on ground. Yes, they had received the answers, but they had received the answers from someone who was operating in fear, someone who thought that if they said, I don't know, they would be marked wrong. Or if they said, I don't know, they would be in trouble. So what we decided to do was to sit down with the supervisors and to come up with a process that kind of provided cover for the people who are engaged within the process and provided guidance for the consultants on whatever information they wanted. They would be guided on who it was who had the best answer, the subject matter expert in that particular area, so that they would get the right answer, they would get the most accurate answer in that particular area. And in the end, the process became very pleasant. By the time the meetings were being held to provide a report on the findings of the process or to provide a report, the meeting was pleasant. It was more conversational. It was more supportive, and it was just a pleasant thing to actually observe, because I had seen the meeting which had been combative, and this was just like a total different flip. So again, this happened because we sat down and had conversations with the team so that we would understand what is the general sentiment within the team. We took time to understand what is going on with the team. So as a team leader, do you have any way or any process that you use to understand what's happening with your team, to understand what your team desires, to understand what your team wants, to check in and see what is the sentiment? How are we feeling in March? How are we feeling during this period of intense work? What is the support you need? Do you have a process where you do that? And then do you also have a process or a way for you to provide the support that the team needs? To provide the support that the team as a collective needs, or to provide the support as an individual team member that an individual team leader needs? Do you have a process that does that? And then do you have a way that you keep checking in with your team? Do you have conversations with your team? Maybe that's the question that I should ask. Do you have conversations that are not just assigning work and reporting, but also finding out what is the mood, what is the sentiment, what is going on, especially when something is not working, or when something is failing, or when something is not working the way that it should work, or when there is an unpleasant environment within the team or within the organization? Do you take time to find out what is going on with your team members?